It was a national tragedy that remains a national trauma for the people of South Korea. An accident which 7 years afterwards still challenges the very foundations of South Korean society, those of obedience and hierarchy. It is the Sewol ferry disaster. The MV Sewol operated the route between the Korean peninsula and the tourist island of Jeonju. On the 16th of April 2014, she capsized with 476 passengers on board, including 325 high school students on a school trip. The death toll was huge, 304. Most of the students died because they obeyed the orders of the crew to stay in their cabins as the water began to flood the ship. 10 days afterwards, the Prime Minister resigned.
The right thing for me to do is to take responsibility and resign as a person who is in charge of the cabinet. I thought it is the way of apology. On behalf of the government, I apologize for many problems, from the prevention of the accident to the early handling of the disaster.
It is true there were a series of failures. Wrong instructions for a start. The attitude of the captain, who was one of the first to leave the ship and has since been sent to prison for life. The Coast Guard reacted slowly, and the owners who were aware the boat was overloaded. And despite all that, 7 years on, the exact cause of the catastrophe remains unknown. The consequences of it still, though, very evident, especially in Ansan, the city from where the students came. Where Yerine Park and Florian Neymar revisit the Sewol tragedy for France 24.
I was scared stiff by the idea of climbing onto a boat after the death of my son. It seemed strange, but I could hear the children's screams, as if I was hallucinating. I remembered the videos they recorded as they called out for help.
The wreck of the Sewol, moored off Mokpo in the southern part of the Korean peninsula, resembles a ghost ship. A visible reminder that continues to haunt the victims' families. A song that names the 250 children who died is played through speakers on the 7th anniversary of the tragedy. Their parents have travelled from all over the country to remember their sons and daughters. Kim Jong-in's eldest son, Soo-in, was among those who died.
As always, I said to him, I love you, have a good trip. God is with you, I'm going to pray for you, enjoy yourself. And also, don't forget to call me. But that call never came. 7 years have already passed, but I still can't accept that my child is not with me. I feel as though I just saw him yesterday, that he is going to walk through the front door of our house at any moment. None of the parents can sleep properly because they are all waiting for their children to come back.
Over time, the sadness felt by the bereaved families has mixed with anger. On the 7th anniversary, they were supposed to toss flowers into the sea at the exact spot where the Sewol sunk, but the trip was abandoned after they discovered that they were to be taken there in a boat owned by the Coast Guard, which has been accused of botching the rescue operation in April 2014.
The crew of this boat, with their well-polished shoes, did nothing while the Sewol was sinking. How can you say that this is a fair country? You'll sink us too next, along with the Sewol. Is this the government that we voted for?
The ceremony out at sea never took place. The rescue operation was a dismal failure. The Sewol took 2.5 hours to sink, the scene unfolding under the gaze of helicopter crews and TV cameras. The ferry took 304 people to their deaths. Jang E-jin was one of the students on board the Sewol that day. She is one of the few survivors.
My friends and I were in a large room that could hold about 30 people. The boat listed and we fell onto the inside of the windows. The door was here and the windows over there, but the ship was tilting like this. Until then, we hadn't really been aware of what was happening. In fact, we were joking about what was going to happen to us. Suddenly, we heard the sound of rushing water from the back of the room and I found myself up to my knees in water. But we had been given the order not to move, so I didn't think about trying to get out. Then I heard some of my friends screaming and our compartment collapsed. We had no choice. We had to escape. A friend who was above me helped me get out, right at the last minute. It's hard to believe. The most difficult part is losing my friends.
Several survivors suffered severe mental trauma that led some to attempt suicide. Jang tried to conquer her fear by becoming a nurse. Now she hopes to become a firefighter and save lives. The victims' parents say they have one purpose: to get to the truth of the Sewol disaster. Theories abound about the cause of the tragedy: cargo overload, illegal ship renovations, heavy fog, a collision. Despite several investigations, the exact cause is still unclear. And another key question: if the captain was among the first to abandon ship, why were his passengers told to stay in their cabins? The president at the time, Park Geun-hye, could not be reached for 7 hours after the incident. What was she doing while her country was going through one of the worst tragedies in its history? The victims' families are preparing to demonstrate in Seoul. Their yellow ribbons have become a symbol of their campaign. Kim has stuck to her demands for 7 years.
시간이 흐르면 흐를수록
As time goes by, I get the feeling that my son is going to ask me, "Mom, what happened? Tell me why this happened to me." I need to know so that I can answer him when I see him again. The president promised us that he would do everything he can to reveal the truth. But he hasn't kept his promise. That's why we are making our voices heard. We have to find out the truth so we can move forward, punish those responsible, and build a better society.
This young politician has joined the parents' demonstration. At 23, Park Sang-min is the youngest member of South Korea's National Assembly. She entered politics soon after the tragedy and belongs to what has become known as the Sewol generation, young people striving to bring about change.
The Sewol tragedy is not just a tragic accident. It was a key event in the impeachment of former President Park Geun-hye. People were united in accusing the government, and I think that the Sewol generation played an important role in the political upheaval at the time. Young people brought a corrupt government to justice. The Sewol tragedy got us interested in politics. It made us think about how our country is governed and how we can take it forward.
Coronavirus pandemic restrictions mean the demonstrators are spread out along the road leading to the Blue House, the official residence of the South Korean president. The families and their supporters remain silent, holding up placards with the message, "Once more, let's remember the Sewol." Kim will be one of the last to leave. The Sewol tragedy not only triggered political upheaval in South Korea, it also placed its strictly hierarchical society under the spotlight. Would the victims have been saved, some asked, if they hadn't automatically followed the order to stay in their cabins? At this vocational high school, one of the teachers is marking the anniversary with some unconventional advice for his students.
The most regrettable part of the Sewol tragedy is that the students felt in danger but stayed in their cabins after they were given the wrong advice. This is a problem of our education system. We teach you to be passive and to obey. In the future, even in our classroom, I don't want you to remain passive. Study for your own benefit, act according to your own interests, build your own futures.
The class stays silent, as if to confirm that Kim's vision for change will not happen overnight.
South Korean society and education are rooted in respect for authority. To preserve that authority, people are made to follow pointless rules. Students are trapped by these rules and have no space to think independently. For example, they must wear a uniform and have their hair a certain way. Even their shoes have to be a certain color. This has to change. This way.
This morning, Kim is taking his students to Pengmok Port, near the site of the Sewol sinking, and where the bodies of the first victims to be recovered were brought.
It makes me sad to be here, looking out at the place where the tragedy happened. I hope they're resting in peace.
It's so traumatic. I feel this way every time I come here.
Over time, this jetty has become a place of pilgrimage for South Koreans.
언니 오빠들이 그 사람 말 안 듣고 그냥 저기 봐봐 저기 바다 그 선장들 말 안 듣고 그냥 탈출했어야 돼? 응 탈출했으면 40분도 그럼 부럽게.
The dead students all came from the city of Ansan, 30 kilometers south of Seoul. They used to study at this high school. Here, the arrival of sunnier spring days also brings pain. The authorities have just opened an education centre. Its classrooms have been built with furniture taken from the classrooms once used by the Sewol students. Their desks, chalkboards and lockers. Families have donated their children's keepsakes. The centre's director, whose son died in the sinking, hopes the facility will raise awareness of the tragedy.
초등학교 In South Korea, it's compulsory for primary school students to take a safety course, and there is a limit on the size of groups going on school excursions. This proves that more emphasis is being placed on safety. I would like this center and these classrooms to become a place of remembrance and compassion. But I would also like it to encourage critical thinking among children. It has to do more than help us remember. It should also inspire hope.
Some visitors struggle to control their emotions.
I don't know them, but when I saw these pictures, it looks like my son's picture. Yeah, it's very sad story. It can be happen to my family, and so yeah, has passed many years. And sometimes I cannot remember. I don't want to remember sometimes, but we can't.
The Sewol tragedy may have prompted change in South Korean society, but for the families of the 304 victims, the pain and the search for the truth goes on.
Erin Park and Florian Neymar revisiting the Sewol tragedy for France 24. Well, that's all from this week's edition. Don't forget, of course, you can catch it and all the previous editions as well. That's on our website at france24.com. More news coming up very shortly. Thanks for watching.